The alarm screamed through the bridge of the steady hand, and Captain Hun's coffee went flying across the control panel. His sister Mina grabbed the navigation controls with both hands, her knuckles white as she fought to stabilize their small merchant ship. "What hit us?" Hyun demanded, wiping coffee from his uniform. "Nothing hit us," Mina said, her eyes fixed on the scanner. "There's a ship out there, dead in the water. We almost crashed into it." Hyun leaned over her shoulder and looked at the screen. Sure enough, a large vessel floated among the asteroids, completely dark. No lights, no power signature, just a hulk of metal drifting through space like a corpse. "Can you identify it?" he asked. Mina's fingers danced across the console. "It's Voskirian, diplomatic class, I think. But I've never seen one up close before." Hyun felt his stomach tighten. The Voskirians were one of the old races, the kind that barely acknowledged humanity existed. They had been exploring the stars when humans were still living in caves. Now here was one of their ships floating helpless in human space. "Taemin," Hyun called into the ship's intercom. "Get up here." Their young engineer appeared a moment later, wiping grease from his hands. Taemin was barely 25, but he could fix anything with enough time and spare parts. "We've got a situation," Hyun said, pointing at the screen. Taemin whistled low. "That's a big ship. What happened to it?" "That's what we're going to find out," Hyun said. "Mina, hail them." Mina worked her controls, sending out a standard greeting on all frequencies. For a long moment, there was nothing but static. Then a voice crackled through the speakers, speaking in broken human standard language. "Human vessel. We require no assistance. Leave this area immediately." The voice sounded strange, clicking and buzzing like an insect. Hyun exchanged glances with Mina. The Voskirians were insectoid, he remembered. He'd never actually met one in person. "This is Captain Hyun of the merchant vessel Steady Hand," he said calmly. "Your ship appears to be without power. We're offering help." "We do not accept help from inferior species," the voice snapped. "Leave now." Hyun felt his jaw clench, but he kept his voice level. "Your ship is drifting into an asteroid field. In about 3 hours, you're going to collide with a rock the size of a city. If you won't accept help, at least fire your thrusters and move to a safer position." There was a long silence. Then the voice came back, quieter this time. "Our reactor is offline. We have no thruster capability, but we still do not require your assistance." "Right," Hyun said. He muted the channel and turned to his crew. "They're going to die out there, and they're too proud to ask for help." "So we leave them?" Taemin asked, though his expression said he already knew the answer. "Would you leave? Someone to die because they were rude to you?" Hyun asked. Taemin grinned. "Not a chance." "Mina, bring us alongside their ship. Carefully. Taemin, grab your tools. We're going to fix their reactor whether they like it or not." Mina guided the Steady Hand through the asteroid field with the skill of someone who had been navigating since she was 16. She brought them right up against the Voskirian ship's hull, close enough for their airlock to connect. When Hyun and Taemin cycled through the airlock, they found themselves facing 3 Voskirians. Each one stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and bodies covered in a hard shell that gleamed like polished stone. Their faces were alien and insectoid, with large, multifaceted eyes and clicking mandibles. The leader stepped forward. Even through the helmet of his environment suit, Hyun could see the creature's hostility. "I am Ambassador Raltef," the Voskirian said stiffly. "You were ordered to leave, and you were about to smash into an asteroid," Hyun replied. "I'm Captain Hyun. This is Taemin, my engineer. We're here to help fix your reactor." "We do not need help from humans," Raltef said. "Your species is barely civilized. You have been in space for less than 2 centuries. We have been traveling the stars for 50,000 years. "That's great," Hyun said. "But right now, your 50,000-year-old ship is broken, and my 200-year-old engineer knows how to fix it. So how about you put your pride aside for a few hours and let us help you?" Raltef's mandibles clicked in what might have been anger, but after a moment, he stepped aside. "Very well. But if you damage anything, we will hold humanity responsible." "Deal," Hyun said. The next 3 days were some of the longest of Hyun's life. The Voskirian reactor was unlike anything Taman had ever seen, but the young engineer refused to give up. He studied it, took it apart, and slowly figured out how it worked. The problem turned out to be a failed cooling system, something Taman could fix with parts from the steady hand. While Taman worked, Hyun and Mina made sure the Voskirian ship stayed safe. Mina calculated a course through the asteroids that would keep them from colliding with anything. She even managed to use the steady hand's thrusters to gently push the larger ship when it drifted too close to danger. On the second day, pirates showed up. 3 small ships appeared on the scanners, probably hoping to scavenge from the dead Voskirian vessel. Hyun didn't hesitate. He took the steady hand out to meet them, his small weapon systems powered up. The pirates took one look at the human ship defending the Voskirian vessel and decided it wasn't worth the trouble. They left without firing a shot. When Hyun returned to the airlock, he found Ambassador Raltef waiting for him. "You risked your ship for us," the Voskirian said slowly. "That's what people do," Hyun replied. "They help each other." "Not in the galaxy, I know," Raltef said. "Every species operates on debt and obligation. Help is given only when something is expected in return. Yet you ask for nothing." "I don't need anything," Hyun said. "Just knowing you'll make it home safely is enough." Raltef was silent for a long moment. Then he bowed his head, a gesture that seemed uncomfortable for his insectoid body. "You do not understand what you have done, human. The Voskirian unity does not forget debts. We owe you our lives." "You don't owe me anything," Hyun started to say, but Raltef raised a hand to stop him. "A debt has been recorded," the ambassador said firmly. "It is entered into our archives and broadcast to our homeworld. Should humanity ever require aid, you need only speak our name across the stars. The Voskirian unity will answer." On the third day, Taman finally got the reactor working. The Voskirian ship's lights flickered on, and power flowed through its systems once more. Ambassador Raltef and his crew prepared to depart. Before they left, Raltef approached Hyun one final time. "I do not understand your species," he said. "You give freely without expecting anything in return. This is not logical. This is not how the galaxy works." "Maybe that's why the galaxy needs more humans in it," Hyun said with a smile. The Voskirian's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. "Perhaps you are right, Captain Hyun. Perhaps you are right." The 2 ships parted ways, the Voskirian vessel accelerating toward home while the steady hand continued on its merchant route. Hyun watched them go on the view screen, then turned back to his crew. "Well," he said, "that was interesting. What's next on our delivery schedule?" Mina pulled up their route. "We've got medical supplies for the colony on Arcturus 7, then a load of mining equipment for the Theln Collective." "Then let's get moving," Hyun said. "People are counting on us." The steady hand jumped to faster than light speed, carrying its crew toward the next adventure. Behind them, the asteroid field grew smaller and smaller until it vanished among the stars. None of them knew that the Yaor, simple act of kindness they had shown, would one day change the fate of the entire galaxy. But that was still many years away. For now, there were deliveries to make and people to help. And for Captain Hyun and his crew, that was more than enough. 15 years had passed since Captain Hyun helped the Voskirian ship, and the galaxy had changed in small but important ways. Humanity had grown from a minor species with a handful of colonies to a recognized member of the Galactic Council. They had proven themselves capable, if a bit strange by alien standards. Admiral Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the warship Defender, watching the stars stream past through the view screen. She had spent 20 years in the United Earth Defense Fleet, rising through the ranks by being smart, careful, and diplomatic. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun and her uniform was perfectly pressed. Everything about her suggested control and discipline. "Admiral," her tactical officer Do-hyun said from his station, "we're receiving the daily briefing from Council headquarters." "Put it on screen," Jiwoo said. The view screen changed to show the familiar logo of the Galactic Council, followed by the usual political updates. Jiwoo only half listened. Most of it was boring trade disputes and minor diplomatic incidents. Then something caught her attention. "The Krell Dominion has annexed another system," the announcer said. The neutral world of Paxis 7 fell yesterday after a brief orbital bombardment. The Galactic Council continues to debate appropriate responses. Jiwoo frowned. The Krell Dominion had been expanding for 5 years now, swallowing up neutral worlds and independent colonies. They were a military empire from beyond the outer reaches of known space, and they were very good at what they did. Every species they had fought against had been crushed. The Galactic Council talked and talked but never did anything. The elder races didn't want to risk a war. The younger races didn't have the strength to fight alone. So the Krell kept expanding and the Council kept debating. "Turn it off," Jiwoo said. "I've heard enough." She walked to her ready room and sat down at her desk. A stack of reports waited for her attention, but she couldn't focus. The Krell problem bothered her more than she wanted to admit. Sooner or later they would push too far, and then what? Would the Council finally act, or would they just keep talking while worlds burned? A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Dr. Soman entered, carrying a datapad and looking excited. Soman was the fleet's leading expert on alien cultures and languages. She was short and energetic, always moving, always thinking. Her mind worked faster than most people could follow. "Admiral, I found something interesting in the old archives," Soman said without preamble. "Do you remember Captain Hyun?" "Of course," Jiwoo said. "Everyone knows Hyun. He's become something of a legend. The merchant captain who's helped half the species in the galaxy." "Exactly," Soman said, placing her datapad on the desk. "I was researching his career for a cultural study, and I found this. It's a debt record from the Voskirian Unity, filed 15 years ago." Jiwoo picked up the pad and read the document. Her eyes widened as she understood what she was seeing. "They formally recorded a debt to humanity? For what?" "Hyun saved a Voskirian diplomatic ship," Soman explained. "He and his crew spent 3 days fixing their reactor and protecting them from pirates. The Voskirians recorded it as an official debt of honor." "That sounds like Hyun," Jiwoo said with a slight smile. "But why are you showing me this now?" Soman's expression turned serious. "Because the Krell Dominion just attacked the Voskirian home system. The Voskirians sent out a distress call 2 hours ago. They're being blockaded and their defenses are failing." Jiwoo stood up so fast her chair rolled backward. "Show me." They rushed to the bridge together. Do-hyun was already pulling up the latest intelligence reports when they arrived. The news was bad. The Krell had sent a massive fleet to Voskirian space, far larger than anything they'd used before. The Voskirians were fighting hard, but they were losing. "Have they asked the Council for help?" Jiwoo demanded. "Yes, Admiral," Do-hyun said. "The Council is holding an emergency session right now, but early reports suggest they won't intervene. The elder races are afraid of the Krell. They don't want to start a war." Jiwoo felt anger rising in her chest. The elder races, with all their wisdom and experience, were going to let the Voskirians die, rather than take a risk. It was the same cowardice they'd shown with every other Krell attack. "What about the debt?" she asked Soman. "That's the interesting part," Soman said. "Voskirian culture takes debts very seriously. They recorded this debt in their central archives and broadcast it across their empire. Every Voskirian knows that humanity is owed a favor, but they're too proud to call it in directly. They would rather die than beg." Jiwoo looked at the view screen where the data about the Voskirian system scrolled past. Billions of lives hung in the balance. The elder races were going to sit in their council chambers and debate while those lives were extinguished. But humanity didn't have to. "Do-hyun, get me a secure channel to Earth Command," Jiwoo said. "Priority Alpha." "Yes, Admiral." While Do-hyun worked, Jiwoo turned to Soman. "I need you to pull every record we have of species that humanity has helped over the years. Every rescue mission, every disaster relief operation, every time we've given aid without asking for anything in return. Can you do that?" Soman's eyes widened as she understood. "You're going to call in all the debts." "No," Jiwoo corrected. "I'm going to give people a chance to stand with us. The debts are already paid. This is about something bigger." The channel to Earth Command opened, and Jiwoo found herself looking at Admiral Park, the head of the entire defense fleet. Park was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He'd been fighting bureaucratic battles for decades. "Admiral Jiwoo," Park said, "I assume this is about the Voskirian situation?" "Yes, sir." "I'm requesting permission to mobilize the Third Fleet and move to assist the Voskirians." Park sighed. "The politicians are already screaming at me to stay out of it. They don't want to anger the Krell. They say it's not our fight." "With respect, sir, it is our fight," Jiwoo said. The Voskirians recorded a formal debt to humanity 15 years ago. Captain Hyun saved their diplomatic vessel. They owe us, and more importantly, we owe them the chance to repay that debt. That's a technicality, Park said, but his tone suggested he was interested. It's more than that, Jiwoo argued. For 15 years, humanity has been helping species across the galaxy. We've built a reputation as the people who show up when others need help. If we abandon the Voskirians now, what does that say about us? What does it say about the value of helping others? Park was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You're right. Damn the politicians. I'll authorize the mobilization. But Jiwoo, understand what you're starting. This could mean war with the Krell. I understand, sir. Then go, and may whatever gods you believe in watch over you. The channel closed. Jiwoo turned to her crew, who were all watching her with a mixture of fear and excitement. She knew what they were thinking. The Third Fleet was powerful, but it was nothing compared to the Krell war machine. If they did this, many of them might not come home. Do-hyun, send a message to all ships in the Third Fleet, Jiwoo ordered. We're mobilizing for combat operations. Destination, Voskirian home system. Estimated time of departure, 6 hours. Yes, Admiral. And send another message, Jiwoo continued. Broadcast it on all frequencies that humanity uses. Tell them what we're doing and why. Tell them about the debt. And tell them that any species that wants to stand with us is welcome to join. Salman looked up from her data pad. You're really going to ask them to come? I'm not asking, Jiwoo said. I'm informing. If they want to come, they will. If they don't, that's fine too. But I want them to know that humanity remembers our friends. Over the next 6 hours, the Third Fleet prepared for war. Ships from across human space converged on the rally point. Weapons were loaded, shields were tested, and crews said goodbye to their families. It was the largest mobilization of human military force since the colony wars 50 years ago. But something else was happening too. Something that no one expected. Ships began arriving from other species. First came the Theln Collective, sending a squadron of cruisers with a simple message. You helped us during the plague. We remember. Then came the Orvathi clans with their fast frigates, then the Kalox tribes. Then species that Jiwoo had never even heard of, all saying the same thing. You helped us once. Now we help you. Soman tracked every ship that arrived, her hands shaking as she updated the count. Admiral, this is incredible. We're up to 18 different species now. Some of them are bringing their entire available fleets. Jiwoo watched the view screen as more and more ships appeared. Each one was a reminder of some past kindness, some moment when humanity had chosen to help instead of looking away. Captain Hyun alone had helped a dozen different species during his merchant career. And he was just one human among billions. How many ships total? Jiwoo asked. Over 300 and more arriving every hour, Do-hyun reported. Admiral, this is the largest volunteer coalition in galactic history. Jiwoo felt a chill run down her spine. She had hoped for maybe a few allies. Instead, she had an armada. Open a channel to all ships, she ordered. All frequencies. When the channel was ready, Jiwoo took a deep breath and spoke. This is Admiral Jiwoo of the United Earth Defense Fleet. To every ship that has joined us today, I offer humanity's gratitude and respect. 15 years ago, one of our captains helped a Voskirian ship in distress. The command deck of the flagship Indomitable hummed with controlled chaos as Captain Minho reviewed the incoming data. Ships were still arriving at the rally point, each one adding to the growing fleet that surrounded Earth's most powerful warship. Minho was a veteran of 20 years in the fleet, with gray starting to show at his temples and scars that told stories he rarely shared. Captain, we have another group jumping in, his sensor officer reported. Looks like the Dalmar flotilla. 6 destroyers. Add them to the formation, Minho said calmly. Send them Admiral Jiwoo's tactical briefing and our current battle plans. He walked to the view screen and stared at the assembled fleet. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all gathered because humanity had asked for help. No, he corrected himself. They had gathered because humanity had once helped them, and they remembered. The door to the bridge opened, and Admiral Jiwoo entered with Dr. Soman and an elderly man in civilian clothes. Minho snapped to attention and his crew followed. At ease, Jiwoo said. Captain Minho, I'd like you to meet someone special. This is Captain Hyun, formerly of the merchant vessel Steady Hand. Minho's eyes widened. He'd heard stories about Hyun for years, but he'd never met the man in person. Hyun was in his 70s now, with white hair and a face lined by decades of smiling. He looked frail, but his eyes were sharp and kind. "An honor, sir," Minho said, shaking Hyun's hand. "The honor is mine," Hyun replied, "though I have to admit I'm a bit confused about why I'm here. I'm retired. I haven't been on a military ship in my life. You're here because this whole operation started with you," Jiwoo said. 15 years ago you helped a Voskirian ship. Now we're going to help their entire species. We thought you should be here to see what your kindness created." Hyun looked around the bridge, then at the view screen showing the massive fleet. His eyes grew moist. "I only did what anyone should do. I saw people in trouble and helped them." "That's exactly the point," Sumin said softly. "Most species in the galaxy don't think that way. They calculate advantage and disadvantage. They help only when they expect something in return. But humanity, and you especially, Captain Hyun, showed us a different way. You helped because it was right, not because it was profitable. And now look what's happened," Jiwoo added. 41 species have sent ships to join us. Over 400 vessels total, all because they remember the times we helped them. Hyun sat down heavily in an empty chair, overwhelmed. "I never imagined that something so small could become something so big." "That's how it works," Minho said. "Small acts of kindness are like seeds. You plant them not knowing what will grow. Sometimes they grow into forests." An alert chimed across the bridge. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Voskirian home system," the communications officer announced. "It's Ambassador Raltef," Jiwoo straightened. "Put him on screen, and make sure Captain Hyun is visible." The view screen changed to show the Voskirian ambassador. He looked much older than he had 15 years ago, his shell more gray than glossy, his movement slower. But his eyes were still sharp, and they widened when he saw Hyun. "Captain Hyun," Raltef said, his voice carrying surprise and something that might have been emotion. "You are there?" "Hello, Ambassador," Hyun said with a gentle smile. "I hear you're in trouble. I thought I should come help." Raltef's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep feeling in Voskirian culture. "When we sent our distress signal, we did not expect any response. The Council has abandoned us. The elder races fear the Krell too much to act. We were prepared to die with honor." "You're not going to die," Jiwoo said firmly. "We're bringing a fleet to help you." "A large fleet? How large?" Raltef asked. "Over 400 ships from 41 different species," Soman said. "All volunteers. All here because humanity asked them to come." Raltef was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "We recorded a debt to one species. One ship, one captain. And you bring 41 species? 400 ships? This is beyond understanding." "It's actually very simple," Hyun said. 15 years ago I helped you because it was the right thing to do. Since then, my people have been doing the same thing across the galaxy. We help because we can, not because we expect anything back. Now all those people we helped want to stand with us. It's like Admiral Jiwoo's captain said, small kindnesses grow into forests. The galaxy does not work this way, Raltef protested weakly. "It does now," Jiwoo said. "Ambassador, we need you to send us detailed information about the Krell positions and your remaining defenses. We'll be there in 36 hours. Hold on until then." "We will hold," Raltef promised. "And Admiral Jiwoo, thank you. Thank you for remembering when the rest of the galaxy chose to forget." The transmission ended. Jiwoo turned to face her command crew. 36 hours to save a species. Let's make sure we're ready." The next day and a half passed in a blur of preparation. Captain Minho coordinated with commanders from dozens of different species, working out battle formations that could account for wildly different ship types and tactics. Some species preferred long-range bombardment. Others liked close-quarters fighting. A few specialized in electronic warfare or stealth operations. Commander Yuna arrived on the Indomitable with her Special Forces teams. Yuna was compact and dangerous with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd been fighting pirates and terrorists for a decade, and she knew how to win ugly battles. "Admiral, my teams are ready," Yuna reported. "We've been training with volunteers from 6 other species. If you can get us onto a Krell command ship, we can disable their coordination systems." "That's risky," Jiwoo said. "Everything about this operation is risky," Yuna replied with a slight smile. "But it's the right kind of risk. The kind worth taking." Soman spent her time coordinating communications between all the different species in the fleet. Each one had different languages, different cultural expectations, and different military protocols. It should have been impossible to make them work together, but somehow it worked. The shared purpose, the memory of humanity's help, created a bond that transcended normal barriers. Old Captain Hyun spent his time walking through the ship, talking to crew members. Minho watched him carefully, worried the old man would tire himself out. But Hyun seemed energized by being aboard a warship, by seeing so many young people ready to risk their lives for others. "You remind me of my crew," Hyun told a young ensign in engineering. "Same spirit, same willingness to help." "You're a legend, sir," the ensign said shyly. "We learned about you in the academy. They told us you represented the best of humanity." "I just did what felt right," Hyun said. "The same thing you're doing now. The same thing all of us are doing. We see people in trouble and we help them. It's not complicated." On the second day, more ships arrived. The numbers kept growing beyond what anyone had predicted. Species that humanity had barely interacted with sent ships with simple messages. "We heard you were fighting for someone who couldn't fight alone. We wanted to stand with you." By the time the fleet was ready to jump to the Voskerian system, it numbered nearly 500 ships. It was the largest volunteer military coalition in galactic history, and it had all started because one merchant captain had stopped to help a broken ship 15 years ago. Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the assembled fleet one last time before they jumped. Captain Minho stood beside her, ready for whatever came next. Commander Yuna was preparing her teams for boarding actions. Dr. Soman was triple-checking the communication systems, and Captain Hyun sat in an observer's chair, his old eyes taking in everything. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Do-hyun announced from tactical. Jiwoo took a deep breath. This was it. Once they jumped, there was no turning back. They would be committing to a fight against the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. Many of them would probably die. The Krell were that good, but they were doing the right thing, and sometimes that was enough. "Open a fleet-wide channel," Jiwoo ordered. When the channel was ready, she spoke clearly. "All ships, this is Admiral Jiwoo. In a few moments we will jump to the Voskerian home system. The Krell Dominion is there, blockading a planet and preparing to destroy a civilization. They think they can do whatever they want because they're strong and everyone else is afraid." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But they're wrong. They're wrong, because they don't understand that strength isn't just about weapons and warships. Real strength comes from standing together. It comes from remembering who helped you and being willing to help them back. It comes from doing the right thing even when it's hard." Her voice grew stronger. "The Krell are about to learn that lesson. They're about to learn that when you attack someone's friend, you don't face one species. You face everyone who remembers kindness. You face everyone who believes that we're better together than apart." Jiwoo looked at Captain Hyun, who nodded encouragement. 15 years ago, one of our captains stopped to help a stranger. Today we're going to show the entire galaxy what that simple act of kindness has grown into. Today we're going to save the Voskerians. And tomorrow the galaxy is going to be a different place." She raised her hand. "All ships prepare to jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, jump." The Voskerian home system materialized on the view screens, and Captain Minho felt his stomach drop. The Krell fleet was even larger than the intelligence reports had suggested. At least 800 warships surrounded the planet, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Orange fire fell from orbit as Krell bombardment ships destroyed Voskerian cities one by one. "Get me a damage assessment," Minho ordered, his voice steady despite what he was seeing. "Voskerian orbital defenses are at 30%, Do-hyun reported. "Most of their fleet has been destroyed. The planet's shields are failing in multiple locations. Admiral, if we'd arrived 6 hours later, there wouldn't be anything left to save." Admiral Jiwoo stood at the center of the Indomitable's bridge, her face carved from stone. "Launch all fighters. Get Commander Yuna's teams ready for deployment, and open a channel to the Krell command ship." "Admiral, they're hailing us first," the communications officer said. "Put them on screen." The view screen changed to show a Krell warlord. The creature was massive, easily 8 feet tall, with gray armored skin and multiple eyes arranged across a broad skull. When it spoke, its voice was deep and filled with contempt. "I am Warlord Thexan of the Krell Dominion. You have entered a military operations zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. I am Admiral Jiwoo of the United Earth Defense Fleet." Jiwoo replied calmly. "We're here to defend the Voskerians. You are the one who needs to withdraw." Thexan's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been surprise. Earth, I have not heard of this species. Are you members of the Galactic Council? We are. Then you are fools. The Council has already decided not to intervene. They sent you here to die, so they can claim they tried to help without actually risking anything important. Jiwoo smiled coldly. You're wrong about several things, Warlord. First, the Council didn't send us. We came on our own. Second, we're not alone. She gestured, and the tactical display updated to show all 500 ships of the Coalition fleet spreading out into battle formation. You're facing 41 different species right now. All volunteers. All here because they chose to stand with us. Thexan stared at the display, his contempt shifting to confusion. This makes no sense. Why would so many species risk war with the Krell for one dying civilization? Because 15 years ago one of our ships helped one of theirs, Jiwoo said simply. Because we pay our debts. Because some things are worth fighting for. Now withdraw your fleet or we'll remove it for you. Thexan laughed, a harsh grating sound. You command 500 ships. I command 800. You are outnumbered and outgunned. This will be a short battle. Then let's find out, Jiwoo said. All ships engage. Space erupted into chaos. The Coalition fleet hit the Krell formation like a hammer, focusing their fire on the bombardment ships attacking the planet. Minho coordinated the Indomitable's weapons, targeting the shields of a massive Krell destroyer. Human railguns fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds, while energy weapons from alien ships hammered the same target from different angles. Their shields are adapting, Do-hyun warned. They're rotating frequencies to compensate. Then we adapt faster, Minho said. He opened channels to 3 nearby alien ships. Theln cruiser, switch to plasma weapons. Orvathi frigate, hit them with your disruptors. We'll keep hitting with kinetics, make them choose which defense to prioritize. The combined attack overwhelmed the Krell destroyer's shields. Its hull cracked open, venting atmosphere and debris. 1 down, 799 to go. Across the battle zone, the Coalition ships were fighting with desperate courage. The Theln Collective's cruisers formed defensive walls, their thick shields protecting smaller ships. The Orvathi frigates darted in and out like angry wasps, striking at weak points before retreating. The Quilox tribes used their ships as missiles, ramming damaged Krell vessels and then teleporting their crews to safety at the last second. And the human ships fought like humans always fought, with innovation, desperation, and a refusal to give up. Pilot Jiho flew his experimental fighter Ghost through a debris field, her hands steady on the controls. She was barely 23, with quick reflexes and absolutely no fear. Behind her, a squadron of Krell fighters was trying very hard to kill her. Ghost 1 to flight control, Jiho said calmly. I've got 6 bandits on my tail. About to demonstrate human creativity. She dove straight toward a disabled Krell cruiser, accelerating to maximum speed. The enemy fighters followed, confident they had her trapped. At the last possible second, Jiho fired her thrusters and flipped her ship backward, killing her forward momentum. Her fighter stopped in space while the Krell ships, unable to match the maneuver, slammed into the cruiser at full speed. 6 confirmed kills, Jiho reported, rejoining formation. But for every victory, the Coalition suffered losses. A Dalmar destroyer took a direct hit to its reactor and exploded. A human frigate lost half its crew when Krell boarding pods penetrated its hull. The Krell were brutal and efficient, and they didn't make mistakes. Commander Yuna watched from her assault shuttle as the battle raged around her. She had 12 teams ready for insertion, each one made up of soldiers from different species. They had trained together for less than 2 days, but it would have to be enough. Commander, we've identified the Krell command carrier, her pilot reported. Sending coordinates now. Yuna studied the tactical display. The command carrier was deep in the Krell formation, protected by layers of defensive ships. Getting to it would be nearly impossible, which meant it was exactly the kind of mission her teams were trained for. All teams listen up, Yuna said over the comm. We're going after their command ship. If we can disable their communications array, their fleet coordination will fall apart. They'll be fighting as individuals instead of as a unified force. Commander, the odds of reaching that ship are minimal, one of her lieutenants said. Good thing we're not interested in odds, Yuna replied. We're interested in results. Pilots, get us there. Kill your engines and drift if you have to. Use debris for cover. Be creative. The assault shuttles launched from the Indomitable, immediately diving into the chaos of battle. They flew erratically, dodging fire and using destroyed ships as cover. 2 shuttles were destroyed in the first minute. Yuna's shuttle took a glancing hit that killed one of her soldiers, but they kept going. They reached the command carrier through a combination of skill, luck, and sheer determination. Yuna's team cut through the hull with plasma torches and poured into the Krell ship, weapons ready. The interior of the Krell vessel was dark and cramped, designed for creatures larger than humans. Yuna's team moved through it like shadows, using their smaller size as an advantage. They fought through Krell security forces, taking casualties but never stopping. Communications array is 3 decks up, Yuna said, checking her scanner. Move. Meanwhile, the space battle was reaching a critical point. The Coalition fleet was holding its own, but barely. The Krell had numbers and firepower on their side. Captain Minho watched his tactical display with growing concern. They were losing ships faster than they could afford. Then old Captain Hyun spoke up from his observer's chair.
Captain Minho, I have an idea.
It's crazy, but that's never stopped humans before. I'm listening, Minho said. The Krell are fighting in tight formation, Hyun explained. They're protecting their command ship by surrounding it with other vessels. But that means they're bunched up. What if we gave them a reason to spread out? Like what? Like a damaged ship with a reactor about to explode heading straight for their formation at maximum speed. Minho understood immediately. You want to use a ship as a bomb? Not just any ship, Hyun said. The Indomitable. This is the fleet flagship. If the Krell see it heading for them in critical condition, they'll do everything they can to destroy it before it reaches them. They'll break formation, focus all their fire on one target, and while they're distracted, the rest of the fleet can exploit the openings. That's insane, Do-hyun said. We'd be sacrificing the flagship. We'd be sacrificing the ship, Minho corrected. Not the crew. We evacuate everyone except a skeleton crew to fly it, and we set the reactor to actually explode if it looks like the Krell are going to capture us. Admiral Jiwoo, who had been listening, stepped forward. Do it, prepare for evacuation. Captain Minho, I'll stay with the skeleton crew. With respect, Admiral, you're too important, Minho said. I'll stay. Not negotiable, Captain. You're a better tactician than I am. The fleet needs you more than it needs me. Before they could argue further, Commander Yuna's voice crackled over the comm. Admiral, we've reached the communications array. Planting charges now. Once they blow, you'll have a 15-minute window where the Krell fleet will be disorganized. Make it count. Understood, Commander, Jiwoo said. Get your people out of there. The next few minutes were chaos. The Indomitable's crew evacuated to other ships while a skeleton crew prepared the flagship for its final mission. Minho wanted to stay, but Jiwoo physically ordered him onto an escape shuttle. That's an order, Captain, she said firmly. The fleet needs a commander and I've made my choice. Minho saluted, his eyes wet. It's been an honor, Admiral. The honor was mine, Jiwoo replied. The Indomitable accelerated toward the Krell formation, trailing fire and venting atmosphere. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Voskir, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from hundreds of species gathered to witness something unprecedented. Dr. Soman stood at the speaker's podium, now officially Ambassador Soman after her promotion. She wore a formal diplomatic uniform, but her energetic spirit remained unchanged. Behind her on the massive view screen, images from the battle played on a loop. The Coalition fleet arriving, the desperate fighting, the sacrifice of the Indomitable. Honorable representatives, Soman began, her voice clear and strong. 6 months ago, humanity made a decision that many of you condemned. We chose to honor a debt that was 15 years old. We chose to fight for a species that the Council had abandoned. Many of you called us reckless, emotional, foolish. She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled aliens. You were right. We are emotional. We do form attachments. We remember kindnesses and we feel obligated to return them, even when logic says we shouldn't. But I would argue that these qualities, which you see as weaknesses, are actually our greatest strength. A council elder, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, spoke up. Your actions risked starting a galactic war. The Krell Dominion is still a threat. Your emotional decision could have destroyed us all. Could have, Somin agreed, but it didn't. Instead, it showed the Krell that they're not invincible. It showed them that there are lines they cannot cross without consequence, and most importantly, it showed every species in this galaxy that they don't have to stand alone against aggression. She gestured to the screen, which now showed the Coalition fleet in all its diversity. 41 species answered our call. They came voluntarily. Not because of treaties or military alliances, but because they remembered times when humanity helped them. We created a network of goodwill across the galaxy, and when we needed it, that network became an army. Another representative, an insectoid being similar to the Voskirians, clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. The Council has existed for 10,000 years. In all that time, we have operated on principles of calculated advantage and careful diplomacy. You humans are less than 2 centuries into space travel. Yet you've accomplished something we never imagined. How? Soman smiled. It's actually very simple. We help people. We don't calculate whether it's advantageous. We don't weigh the political implications. We see someone in trouble and we help them. Then we move on and forget about it. But they remember. And when we needed help, they came. Fleet Admiral Minho entered the council chamber at that moment, his uniform bearing the new rank that had been forced upon him after Admiral Jiwoo's death. He still felt uncomfortable with the promotion. It should have been Jiwoo standing here, not him. He approached the podium and Soman stepped aside to let him speak. Admiral Minho, the council spokesman said, your fleet has been given a formal commendation for your actions at Voskir. But there are concerns. The coalition you assembled still exists. Nearly 300 ships from 30 species remain organized under human command. Some council members worry about what this means. It means we're prepared, Minho said bluntly. The Krell agreed to a ceasefire, not a surrender. They're still out there, still dangerous. The coalition remains active because we all agree that we're stronger together. When the next threat appears, and it will, we won't waste time debating while people die. You're creating a military force outside council authority, another representative objected. We're creating a defensive alliance, Minho corrected. Any species can join. Any species can leave. We don't compel anyone. But those of us who choose to stand together will do so, with or without council approval. The council chamber erupted into debate. Some representatives were outraged by humanity's presumption. Others were intrigued. A few looked thoughtful, as if considering whether their own species should join this new alliance. While the politicians argued, life continued across the galaxy. On the Voskirian homeworld, construction crews worked to rebuild the cities destroyed in the bombardment. Human engineers worked alongside Voskirian builders, sharing techniques and technology. The two species that had once been strangers were becoming friends. Ambassador Raltef, now even older and more frail, walked through what had once been the capital city. Beside him walked a human diplomat named Hana, a young woman barely out of university who had volunteered to help with reconstruction efforts. Your people have given so much, Raltef said, his voice weak but sincere. Admiral Jiwoo gave her life. Thousands of your soldiers died in our defense. How can we ever repay such a debt? Hana smiled gently. You already have, Ambassador. You recorded the original debt 15 years ago. That debt brought us here, so in a way you've already paid us back by giving us the opportunity to prove what humanity stands for. That is a strange way of thinking, Raltef said. Maybe, Hana agreed, but it's how we think. We don't keep score, we just try to do right by people. Elsewhere in the galaxy on a busy trade station, Commander Yuna was having a drink with several of her multi-species Special Forces team. They'd all survived the battle, though not without scars. Now they were trying to figure out what came next. I got offered a position training new recruits, said one soldier, a being covered in blue scales. They want me to teach other species how humans fight. And how do humans fight? Yuna asked with a grin. Crazy, the soldier said, but he was smiling. Absolutely crazy. No regard for proper tactics, no respect for superior firepower, just pure determination and creative problem solving. That's the nicest description of human military doctrine I've ever heard, Yuna laughed. In a shipyard orbiting Earth, we're continued on a new flagship to replace the Indomitable. This one would be called the Jiwoo, named after the admiral who had sacrificed everything for others. Captain Minho visited the construction site when he could, watching the ship take shape. One day he found old Captain Hyun standing on the observation deck, staring at the skeleton of the new ship. Hyun had aged visibly in the past 6 months. The battle had taken a toll on him, even though he'd never fired a shot. He had watched his simple act of kindness grow into something that cost thousands of lives, including Admiral Jiwoo's. Do you regret it? Minho asked, standing beside the old man. If you could go back 15 years and pass by that Voskirian ship, would you? Hyun was quiet for a long moment. "I've thought about that a lot," he finally said. "Admiral Jiwoo died because I stopped to help strangers. So did thousands of others. That's a heavy weight to carry." "That's not an answer," Minho said gently. "No, I wouldn't change anything," Hyun said firmly. "Not because I don't grieve for those we lost. I do every day. But because the alternative was worse. If I had passed by that Voskirian ship, if humanity had never built those connections, what would have happened when the Krell attacked? The Voskirians would have died. All of them. Billions of people erased from existence while the galaxy watched and did nothing." He turned to face Minho. "Admiral Jiwoo didn't die because I helped someone 15 years ago. She died because she chose to stand up when others sat down. She died because she believed some things are worth fighting for. That was her choice, and it was a good choice." Minho nodded slowly. "She told me something before the battle. She said that humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't our technology or our weapons. It was our memory. Our refusal to forget the people who stood beside us." "She was right," Hyun said. "The elder races have become too practical, too calculated. They've forgotten that civilizations aren't built on logic alone. They're built on trust, on loyalty, on the willingness to sacrifice for others. We reminded the galaxy what that looks like." 3 months later, Captain Hyun passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 82 years old. The funeral was attended by representatives from over 50 species, many of whom had never met the old merchant captain but felt they owed him a debt. A memorial was erected on Earth, a simple stone monument in a garden. The inscription read, "Captain Hyun, merchant and humanitarian. He stopped to help strangers and change the galaxy. He showed us that kindness is not weakness but the foundation of empires." On the Voskirian homeworld, a larger memorial took shape. It was called the Garden of Debts, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each species that had fought at Voskir planted something from their homeworld in the garden. Trees, flowers, crystals, living stone. Each one different, but all growing together in harmony. At the center of the garden stood a statue of Admiral Jiwoo, her arm raised as if pointing toward the stars. Around the base were inscribed the names of every ship and every person who had died in the battle. The inscription read, "They remembered when others forgot. They answered when others were silent. They proved that in a cold, vast universe, someone will always remember." The Garden of Debts became a pilgrimage site. Young people from across the galaxy came to see it, to understand what had happened at Voskir. They learned about the human concept of paying debts forward, of helping without expecting anything in return. Some of them went home and started similar practices in their own cultures. The Krell Dominion never attacked another council member world after Voskir. They had learned that aggression came,